right, so welcome back, everybody, to VOK for another Westworld discussion. This is season 2. We are going to be discussing episodes 3 and 4, middle of the week here. The episode 4 just aired a couple days ago. Looking forward to episode 5. I'm Adam, also known as Drownedsnow on the forums, and today I've got Bina and Jock with me, and we've just kind of hit the ground running on this. So what was it you were saying, Bina?
I mean, for me, I think this episode 4 is probably my favourite single episode of all of Westworld so far. And like my passion to discuss it is huge. But 3 was also great. Like I remember sort of messaging my other half saying, "Oh my god, 3 is such a mindfuck." So it's going to be important for us to remember to discuss both episodes 3 and 4 today. I think we're gonna end up bouncing around a lot, but we'll try to give them each their due. Because there's whole worlds and peoples in 3 that we don't even see in 4. Like it feels like they are doing very
right. Well, I mean, I thought so. So episode 5 we discussed last time has like the Japanese title, so I'm like, oh, that's when they're going to be going to the Shogun world. And then at the end of episode 3, they're there, and the previews looked like that's where they would be next week. And so I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to get that in 4, and then we didn't. So I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense, but I don't know. I thought that was going to get pushed up. I'm looking forward to that next week, obviously. But episode 3 aired, and that was like my favorite. I thought that was the best episode of the season. Yes. And then episode 4, I think episode 4 is probably the best episode of the series so far, I think. And I've seen kind of the same sentiment from other people. I like where they're going has taken a lot more shape now. We're 4 episodes in, and I really like what they're doing. I like the idea here. So.
I love the audacity of setting up Shogun World so heavily, and then boom, we're in Raj World. That was bold, and I love the kind of the completion over these 2 episodes of who is that really feisty, charismatic woman we met in Raj World.
Right, and so she just shows up out of nowhere, and it's weird because I guess when you looking at it, you think, okay, well, they're just giving us another character because they have to show this other park. They're letting us see another park and what happened at another park. Kind of, they could have easily done that as a one-off. This girl, she meets another guy. He's, not a host. She tests him by shooting him. Crazy stuff. And then that could just be the end of it. It explains the tiger we saw, but. Then they bring it all back around where she's his daughter, which in episode 3, I didn't really have that hint.
I didn't. I think Blue Armor on the forums, Matt claims that he kind of figured it out, or people on forums were talking about it. But it was only when William is talking to Papa Delos and saying, you've got a granddaughter, she's whip smart. And I was like, oh, maybe it's that girl. And then
as soon as when they were captured and she said, well, I'm not looking to leave. I was like, oh, she must be his daughter. Yeah. Right away.
And also, like, in retrospect, it feels so obvious because she does exactly what she does. When we first meet her in Raj World, she's not there to play the game that other tourists play. She's evidently using the part for her own.
She's been there plenty of times.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it should make sense, but you're thinking it's kind of late in the game to introduce a significant character like this. I mean, you can always introduce new characters, but it just seems like they hit the ground running. Like, okay, we're supposed to care about this woman, and now it's like, oh yeah, she's actually related to someone else we know. So that's the easy way to do it. That's good storytelling. But
how do you guys feel about Raj World? I mean, is that in the original Westworld? I can't even remember.
No, the original the movie at least. The original Westworld, they had the medieval world. Like the Roman world.
Roman world, Caesar world.
Westworld, yeah. I think it was just the 3 they showed in that one. I don't know. I didn't, like, there was a book, right?
Yes.
Like, I don't know. I'm not familiar with that. But what's the appeal? So I guess you go and you get to be, like, all British colonial and then you, like, hunt tigers and stuff? I mean, that's...
I think it's probably like all of these appeals of Westworld. It's a fantasy land, so I definitely.
And people like different time periods and locales.
Yeah, I mean, Rajworld struck me as a little bit unusual, but then it has that same kind of hint of oppression. So you have, as in Westworld, where you have a type of person who's really outlandishly powerful relative to the natives, so to say.
Right.
Ghost Nation in that case. And I think here it's exploitation of the locals, lots of, pretty Indian girls you can sleep with, I guess. And
I mean, Shogun World, you're probably wanting to be like a feudal lord or something, or you're wanting to be higher up in the system. Pretty little geisha
girls running around or whatever.
Right. It's always places in the past where you can kind of be be a boss, I guess. That's the fantasy for most
people. And
live
in luxury.
Right.
But it's kind of interesting to me because the only people who can afford to go to these worlds are already super rich. Whereas I would imagine some kind of in our time, like in our future, there would be some cheap hologram version where if you couldn't afford a real safari, you could go into a virtual reality one.
Right.
It just seems to me like these worlds should appeal more to people who wouldn't have access to it normally. If you're a billionaire, you can pretty much do that anyway.
I think the reason is that, well, I mean, you can't go hunt tigers and kill people, and right, and this is how far in the future, and we see kind of the way society's going now in a lot of Western countries anyway. You know, more and more this stuff is less acceptable, even just kind of these attitudes.
Yeah.
So maybe like it's like, well, no, you can't really go on safari anymore. Too many people are watching, or maybe all the tigers are dead in the future. I don't know.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it could be a resources thing, or it could just be like a privacy thing. Here's a private enclosure where you can do whatever you want, And
some of it's just the dressing up, isn't it? Like on the plane home today, I was watching Out of Africa's on Netflix in the UK at the moment, which is this 1980s film starring Meryl Streep and Robert Redford. And it's all set in sort of 1910s and 1920s Kenya. And they're often safari in old-fashioned clothes and on horses. And, it's so glamorous. So, yeah, I can see the appeal if someone had, like, Kenya World or sort of colonial Africa World.
Right. I mean, people go to Renaissance fairs or people, dress up for reenactments or whatever. And, so originally we saw the tiger and we were trying to figure out, maybe that's India or whatever, trying to figure out what that would be. So I would have thought it would have been more like further back, less like colonial India, But I guess like who are you? Because I would have thought they're trying to appeal to a diverse background of people, right?
I have to say I loved her storyline because I feel that so much of Westworld, and I know they're commenting on it and criticizing it, but so much of it is showing violence against women or sexual objectification of women. And this was the first time, boom, where you have a woman really just taking a man for her own pleasure and bossing him around, and then the poor fucker dies. But I found it really, if we talk about her storyline over the 2 episodes we're discussing today, I did find it a bit absurd that she would survive falling over the edge of the cliff with the tiger into the lake.
But the tiger didn't, Did
that bother you at all that she survived?
It looked like the tiger got her pretty good. So, and she doesn't seem any worse for the wear,
But doesn't the tiger go over with her though?
Well, she shoots the tiger as the tiger attacks her, right? So I can understand the tiger being dead, I guess, but like the tiger looks to have like completely trampled her into the water, which I would think would lead to more than just some bumps and bruises and swimming out.
I just felt like if you're grappling a tiger, albeit when you shot, and you fall into water, and that weight of that tiger's on top of you, clutching you, how do you
break something, right? And you might get drugged down. I mean, we'll get
to the Elsie storyline later, but this was
we've got to suspend our disbelief on these nano bullets and magical swords, so
but this also magical falling into water under a tiger thing really is bugging me. I mean, I love this show and I love these 2 episodes, but it's like, come on. Really?
Yeah. I expected her to shoot the tiger and the tiger falls up or something. I didn't expect her to go into the water. I thought that was a little weird, but I guess they wanted a way to have her transition parks, which it seems maybe she was trying to do eventually anyway, or I guess if the park was going to chaos, she would have done, right? Try to find her dad.
Where do you think they're going to take that relationship? Like, how far do you think she knows what her dad is and is up to, like how evil?
Well, I mean, he said in season 1 that like his wife died, and his daughter said like they were always afraid of, like, he was always a nice guy and he was always he always had the face on outside of Westworld, but like they were always afraid that he was like an inch away from snapping. They kind of knew what he was up to, maybe, or knew some of his secret desires. And I think she said, when he talks about his wife's suicide, or he says there was like some pills or something involved. I don't think he necessarily says suicide, but he said that, he said she had an accident, and the daughter said no, she committed suicide because she couldn't stand you or whatever anymore. Like the daughter blames him for the death. So
you've got an angry daughter who basically hates her dad and is the sole heir to Delos. I mean, kill daddy and company's yours.
Well, yeah, I guess because we also get the news that Logan died of an overdose years ago.
Do you trust William when he says this stuff, or is he just trying to talk
that's true. I mean, he was clearly in total fuck you mode right there at the end.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me because last time we see Logan, he is fucked up. But
so I guess we could come back to this a little bit, but that's kind of one of the theories that may mean that's all somewhat bullshit. Is that perhaps he was working on his own clone at the same time, trying to find a way that he could live forever, and it wasn't working out. And then with Mr. Delos not working out either, he was just kind of pissed off. Or the theory is that maybe he's already a clone.
That he's since perfected the James Delos, the Papa Delos technology in order to clone himself.
But in the course of a week, though, because
no, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. That part is. I think maybe he was desperate and he had to do it or something. I don't know.
Is this a good transition then from Rajwald and the daughter to what's going on with William and Papa Delos?
Yeah. We can just follow that thread the whole way through. Why not?
Yeah. So how did you find the introduction of the amazing Peter Mullen as Papa Delos?
Oh, he was great.
Man, that's acting. That's just acting, man. Like I was saying to myself, when you watch him glitching in the loop, that is just such good acting to be able to do that. And then the final kind of not dead zombie, but the sort of horror movie Papa Delos was so scary with his skin kind of scraped off, but still pedaling the bike. I mean, fuck me. That was fantastic. That's one of the best single images I think of this whole season. Is just that kind of red black.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
He was just so unhinged, and her name is Grace, by the way, the daughter Grace.
Oh, okay, cool.
Right, because the wife was Juliet, I think, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any significance there. Yeah, man, he was excellent in this episode. I mean, the first thing I thought when they showed us the apartment and he's talking about California, I'm like, he ain't in California. If you were in California, or he thought he was in Malibu or something, you could see out those windows, right? You'd be enjoying your view.
Well, I immediately thought he was a clone and that it was a lab because it was so small. I was like, you're not one of the richest trillionaires in the world living in that confined space. I mean, it's very nice, but it had that kind of 2001 Space Odyssey luxurious prison cell feel to it.
They did kind of telegraph with the previously on this episode, where they have him in. Was it the second episode where when William is younger and he's kind of taking over the company, and he says, "Oh, you're about to retire, because he's whatever, he has a condition," and he's like, "Well, the news is maybe I won't have to," and I thought maybe that originally when I saw that episode, there's so much going on. I'm like, oh, they've got a cure, or maybe he's being pushed out and saying he's going to resist or something, and immediately I was like, oh, cloning or
And
Android,
I get that William
whatever.
would want Delos to successfully be able to do cloning, right? Because that's untold wealth. But it's in his interest to tell Papa Delos that it hasn't worked. Because if they can clone the father, doesn't he just get to keep everything forever anyway? And then William doesn't get it? Would a clone father then just take over running everything and then...
Well, but I mean, I think they obviously declared him dead at some point, and all that. But there's the other issue. I mean, it's supposed to bring up obviously issues of the soul, and if you're watching this from the outside, and they keep bringing this person back, basically, you've got cloned memories at the same point. They keep coming back at the same point. He still thinks it's 30, 40, 50 years ago. Can that really be the person? I thought maybe they were going to have his actual brain transplanted into a robot body or something. It was kind of a one-time attempt at something, but
it's all about the red eggs, Adam.
Yeah, yep, it's less fancy. And
so at the end, when they grab the red egg, or Bernard does, whose consciousness do you think he's grabbing? Do you think it's Papa Delos? Do you think it's William? Do you think it's Logan, perhaps? I mean,
or Bernard,
Arnold,
or Arnold. That's what I meant. Yeah. Arnold. I don't. I think we're meant to be guessing at that. I think, and maybe it's all misdirection, knowing the people that kind of run the show. But I think we're meant to believe that the 2 weeks later Bernard isn't Bernard. It's someone else, and maybe that's a misdirection of some sort. I don't know. He's gotten touched up a little bit so that he's not, about to implode, but clearly his body's running along, right? So if they swapped his brain out or fixed him up, or maybe he's like an amalgam or something,
or he's injected himself with Abernathy's brain or whatever.
Right. It could be a whole bunch of different things. So,
but like in that first episode of Westworld this season, when he's being diagnosed in one of those underground labs about what's wrong with him, and one of the symptoms is aphasia. So aphasia is not thinking you're seeing something you're not seeing. So I was really wondering if he's seeing Elsie, but it's not really Elsie.
I hope not. I mean,
because the manner of her survival. Oh, okay. Do you want to talk anything more about William and Delos and Papa Delos before we move to Bernard?
No, then we can roundabout on that. And there's something I'll mention later, but
cool. Maybe Park William is another sort of topic. So the whole thing in these past 2 episodes is the reintroduction of Elsie. I find it like completely bizarre that she survives on protein shakes in this weird ass cave. And then if Ford told Bernard to kill, the business, what's her name? Sid Babat Newton, her character in season 1. How come he doesn't?
The behavior lady or whatever. Yeah.
Like, how come he doesn't get him to kill Elsie? How come he just like hides Elsie in a cave? And there's just something sitting with me not well about Elsie surviving, even though I really love the actress and I'm really.
I buy it in like because it's only been a couple days since like it could work. It's a weird thing for him to have done, and I personally think it was just an excuse. They wanted to bring the actress back, which I'm perfectly fine with. But I don't know. Maybe this was like Bernard having a little bit of rebellion. Maybe he was supposed to kill her and didn't.
Sort of proto-consciousness.
Right.
I mean, I do think they needed a character to be Bernard's sidekick who's a bit scientific. You can lab explore with him, and she fits the bill. There's a prior relationship, but bear in mind, the last time she saw Bernard, she thought he was real. And she comes back and finds out he's a host and doesn't seem that kind of worried about it. It just feels the writing's a little bit loose.
Yeah, she was a bit freaked out, realizing what was going on, but she got over it quicker than I thought. And maybe because, once they get down below maybe I think it was the pad, really, once she sees that pad, that he's actually a host and is, I think she's more intrigued. That would probably be her nature, trying to like figure it out, because she does say like, "Hey, you rotated out. You had a whole backstory and everything. Like, where did you go?"
Yeah, and maybe there's just a basic survival thing, and they are still in the midst of a civil war, fighting for their lives. So maybe she's just like, you know what? I'll process this. There's trauma here. I'll process it. Let me. And she
seemed she seemed like for most of that episode ready to kill him at any moment, Yeah,
exactly. She did turn really badass, and I loved her when she saw the drone hosts, who were genuinely freaking
like, what
crazy.
The fuck? He's like, just don't threaten them, and they're cool. And then we learn later that they can be very uncool.
Yeah, exactly. But I just loved her reaction, because that was basically my reaction when I first saw a drone host, and I would totally have shot one in the head. I wouldn't be taking any chances.
So I am confused. So whatever's going on there, Ford sent him to kill the people. Probably part of his plan, because he was had this whole thing going with Dolores and the host revolt. But somehow he controls the drones with like a whisper. That's pretty darn creepy. But then when he gets to the point where she's about to open the vault and go inside, and he goes, "Oh, that's right, I'm not here right now." Right? He's remembering, that it was a couple weeks ago, I guess. So is at that point, is he back there with like the Delos people 2 weeks later, or is he just splintering? Where was he at when he said that?
I need to watch the episode again and try and figure it out a little bit more, but I think it's still ambiguous. And there's a line earlier, I think, in this episode, as opposed to 3, where he wakes up and says, when am I? Or what, when is this?
Right.
And I think echoing the Dolores thing, and I think that's really good. It's he's very much a protagonist we should not trust in his memories. They've told us that, so. It's cool though. Very dramatic scenes, lots of good action and creepy drones, so I appreciated that. What's a good transition to who are the other characters we haven't discussed yet? These two.
Let's see. I'm trying to think. Well, let's go back to episode 3. I mean, we had Maeve's whole storyline there, right?
Reunions, yes, and the meeting between Maeve and Dolores as well.
Yeah, and what happened with the whole Confederados at the fort and everything. A lot of back and forth there.
Yeah. So what do you want to do? Do you want to do Maeve and Hector first? Yeah.
Let's. Because I'm kind of interested. So there were some memes that popped up from episode 3. They've been walking for a couple days, whatever. They run into Dolores, and then they get forced back underground by the Ghost Nation, and then they happen to run into Armistice, who just happens to have Felix and Sylvester like tied up, and Sylvester's like has to rest his head on a grenade so he can't talk. I guess because he was annoying her, but somehow he's alive.
I know.
Which I guess like he had his throat cut in season 1, and then they have their magical oh, we've fixed your carotid artery. Okay, I guess.
Again, actually, the more I'm talking about these episodes, which I love, the more I'm thinking there's a lot of jump the sharky narrative convenience sort of.
Well, what's the point of keeping Sylvester around at all, though? You know what I mean? I thought he served his purpose.
I think it's fan service. Yeah, because people would just love the characters.
People like him though, he was kind of like the cheesy killer, and rape the hosts and stuff. He was not the greatest. Anyway. So Felix, I understand him being back, but
and Armistice to some extent,
and she's got a robot arm now, and she's
got a firearm.
Winter Soldiering it. Yeah. So they end up in Shogun World with a bunch of people's heads cut off. I think hosts and guests alike. It looks like, but I'll be very interested to see what's going on over there. Because we're meant to believe that I think that's why they showed us the Raj World, right? Is that the host revolt kind of happened everywhere at the same time, right?
Yeah, exactly. Which means it must be programmed. It's forward behind it. I guess I suspend judgment on Shogun World till next episode, but it was just Maeve getting to where she needed to kind of get to, just being sarcastic, which I love in this sort of British school mummy way, but it wasn't that substantial. The only substantial bit in that I felt was her meeting Dolores and them kind of giving each other space. And I was just kind of getting in this question and answer with Mordian on the podcast Device and Fire forums about how far do either of these women have free will? Who's more along the road to consciousness of the two of them? Maeve could clearly outpower Dolores, right? But she chooses to just sidestep that for now. I just need to go find my kid. But it feels to me there must be some showdown between the two at the end.
Existentially, they kind of have the same goal, but they also have very different goals and ways of going about it. So
yeah.
It's interesting. I think we're obviously meant to root for one over the other, right?
I'm Team Maeve. Because Team Dolores has become Team Wyatt.
Yeah, although, that's just it. We spent all last season rooting for Dolores, and now she's kind of not really Dolores anymore. And, is she beyond redemption at this point?
I don't think she's beyond
Was she ever really the hero?
I think you see when she sees her dad, when she sees Abernathy, the humanity come out, and getting Bernard to try and help him. So Dolores can sometimes... To me, it's more like Goll and Smeagol. So basically... can Dolores keep her head above water long enough for the humanity to come out, or is Wyatt, the vengeful Wyatt, gonna be dominant? Just a prettier version of Goll and Smeagol.
Much prettier.
So how did you interpret the test she set for Teddy at the end?
Yeah,
when she's go kill these people, and he doesn't, and then she
that's what I was gonna ask is what do you think it means that she just kind of sat there around the corner watching him and then doesn't do anything right there?
I think Dolores
to keep us guessing.
I think Dolores wants Wyatt to have consciousness as she does. And I think that the way she thinks consciousness is about escaping programming, which is true. And if Teddy's programming is always to do everything Dolores wants and to save Dolores and all be all about Dolores all the time, then Teddy actually disobeying Dolores and showing some ethical backbone to defy her is a big step for her. So I think actually it was a test, and she's probably...
You think she liked it?
Yeah, I think the result is a good one. I still think that Wyatt will then go back and get those people and shoot them, but...
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't decide if him disobeying her was like breaking the programming, or if she would be disappointed because he's programmed to be kind of the good guy and he's being the good guy still. I couldn't tell what result she really wanted.
Yeah, maybe it's all of the above, like some complicated mixture. But I love it, and it's further evidence for me that Teddy, Dolores, Wyatt's going to be really interesting this season in a way that it wasn't as much last season. So it's awesome.
Okay, and then let's see what else happened in episode 3. We get the giant battle at the fort with I guess this is what's left of the Delos security, at least. I don't know for the whole island or if it's just Westworld or whatnot, but she gets the Confederados together and gives them some new weapons and then traps them outside the gate to die.
That was so brutal.
But she does kill. They do kill quite a few of the security guys. So, but they still sneak in and yeah. I mean, she's like, they didn't join up right away, and they're kind of shitheads. I just need them for this part, I'm done with them now. It's
literal cannon fodder, right? Just to absorb bullets.
And I love how her creepy people with their animal masks and everything, looking like a bunch of cult members, just kind of sneak back in and then they disperse quietly. The end game is a little weird, but she did say that they're going to Sweetwater next. That she's got something to do there, which I've been wanting to see what's become of that town since all this happened, because that's the Main Street USA, Disneyland. That's like your entryway. That's the safe. Everything's roses. I mean, someone might roll through and rob the bank or whatever, but it's family entertainment. You can sit over there and cheer. It's not too bad as long as you don't go upstairs in the whorehouse, right? So now it's going to be like on fire and.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. I mean, I do enjoy watching Wyatt being all like badass and everything, but it's been interesting, turning against Dolores this season, and I'm hoping it really pays off well. We shall see. I guess the other thing we have to wait and see, like just as Shogun World, is Ghost Nation. Like it feels like Ghost Nation's going to get a bigger part to play, but I'm nervous about how they're going to portray Native Americans.
It was interesting when they had all those people lined up, and then they bring them to like the elder or whatever, and you're thinking, well, this is just gonna that it must be part of the narrative to kill them, or well, maybe not if they can't kill the host, or they can't kill the guests. But yeah, then what is it? He says something like, you'll live as long as the last person that remembers you or something, and then like they're all set free. It's like not expecting that.
Yeah, exactly.
Meanwhile, Grace has already like pieced out. She was like, "Fuck it, they're gonna kill us all."
Yeah, I'm really hoping Ghost Nation goes somewhere interesting, and so do Shoguns. Otherwise, it's going to just be yet more cultural dodginess. William in the park and his sidekick.
The road again.
I just find that a bit less interesting.
I thought episode 4 with them was very interesting.
Oh, with the little
but from the conclusion,
where we're still getting Ford's voice, through Lawrence's daughter, where she says, well, just because you did one good thing doesn't mean, you can be forgiven for everything. He's like, what do you mean good thing? I'm still playing your game, which I don't know if that's necessarily true entirely. I mean, that's kind of his what he's built up, especially after the death of his wife, probably. But there's a scene where right before he kills them, where he says that you didn't recognize death, sitting right across from you, and that's what some people are saying now. Like, oh, well, that clearly means that he's already died, and because I think earlier they said something about like someone tells William, like, you think you know death or something, but you don't know death. So they think that maybe he had died or tried to kill himself or something, and now he's the other human host that's walking around that Bernard mentions, because he mentions that there's another one. But I did just like that whole bit where they go back to Lawrence's village, and I don't know why he's still kind of playing by the old world's rules, because you see him sit at that table and takes his gun apart and starts doing his thing like he's badass and can't be killed anymore. And then the bartender walks out shaking, and then they get ambushed, and he kind of got caught with his pants down, right? You'd think he would be more on guard there. So, but he brings it back around, but still.
What's up with the game with the holding the shot glass or whatever? And is that a reference from other Western movies or something, or is that something new in Westworld?
That's sort of. I mean, it's like like the whole. It's like a perverse, William Tell thing, where I've seen it in Westerns and stuff. Like, yeah, hold this. And then, they just shoot the guy in the chest. I guess, oops. It seems to be something that bad guys in Westerns like. In your hand, or hold this on your head, and look how good I am. And I guess it's a takedown of like the really old Westerns. I think sometimes they'd have the good guy do that, William Tell it. And shoot a can off someone's head or something, like, wow, mister, you're a great shot. So I think that's what it is, because no one's that good, and you shouldn't really ever do that anyway, even if you are. Like, it's just not a cool idea.
Be okay, PSA.
Don't try to shoot things off people's heads, even if you're really good at it, because that's just not good gun safety and stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then who else did we not chat about yet?
I want to know why. What is going on with Clementine? She's still like half zombie, and
I love zombie Clementine.
Ford, obviously the ghost of Ford or whatever, brings Bernard where he can get help. In kind of an odd spot. So.
Yeah, Ford.
I guess that would mean Ford.
He's still running around.
Does that mean that Ford knows that Elsie was there, or just that he was going to go to that way station there, and that was his best shot?
So is Ford somehow still sentient in the Matrix, knowing what help Bernard needs at any time?
I feel like he has to be, because what they showed us this episode with Delos, still having his little robot mind. I mean, we could have copies of Arnold. We could have copies of Ford. Ford could have easily inserted a copy of himself into the system already. And maybe the idea is he comes back as a host. I'm not, I would hope he has something more elegant than that, in his end game. But it definitely seems like that's what he's done. He's used this technology, to
hey, Michael,
make his way in. Hey, Michael.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Awesome.
Good.
I'm so pleased you could join.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad.
So we've just been kind of going through the whirlwind here. That was episodes 3 and 4. We've covered quite a bit, but we can run back around to anything you want to talk about. What were some of the highlights for you?
Sorry, hang on one second.
I can just edit this out.
Yeah, that's the nice part. Sorry, I wasn't really. I sort of thought maybe this wasn't going to happen after all, and so I was not prepared just now. Let's see. Highlights of 3 and 4. God, I love the opening shot of episode 4, the circular thing with Old Man Delos, or his robotic.
Yeah.
That was just that scene was
one
fantastic.
Of his clones.
Yeah, or whichever one it was. I don't know. You guys talk, and I'll jump in a second. Okay.
I mean, basically, to summarize what we've done for the last half hour, we both said that we probably think 4 is the best episode yet. 3 and 4 really strong. I'm disturbed by the jump the shark moments that William's daughter survived jumping into a lake with a Bengal tiger on top of her, and I'm also slightly annoyed that Elsie's still alive, eating protein bars, living in a cave with no water. But other than that, I just think
well,
it's all
also weird. Security van Mr. Hemsworth, right? Like...
Yeah. But I think other than that, it's just really strong. I love the kind of the shock of Raj world rather than Shogun world being the first world that we see. I love the character of the daughter. I love everything about the sort of 2001 prison cell in which Papa Delos is looping and glitching. I love how dark William is.
What do you think?
It's all good, right?
Do you think that their method might be what's wrong? I mean, their method is we're going to have a conversation, and then I'm going to show you that this is kind of, we already knew what you were going to say because, you know, you're a creation or whatever. This is kind of programmed. I mean, you're trying to break someone doing that. They're trying to challenge them and hope they don't break. It seems like kind of a bad way to introduce them to being a robot.
They've already broken, that they only have a conversation once they can see the hands are shaking and they're glitching.
Right.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, and at that point you may as well be sadistic or whatever and then torture them.
And then they just see how it goes. Okay.
And then I was like, why do you need to torch the apartment? Like, just torch the man.
Yeah, that's also super weird, right? Like, why even torch the man, right? They just need to...
super cool record player.
There's so much waste. That's what I thought, too.
Very worst
case. And the goldfish in the bowl? What did the goldfish do to you?
And it takes them, like, weeks to rebuild it all. Like, that seems inefficient.
It's very strange. I mean, but yeah, because they talk about whenever... William leaves the room, he always talks with the person, you know, administering the site, and they always say like, oh, he lasted 15 days, he lasted 35 days, or whatever. So like, it's clear that William is only coming in once he's not working correctly. But the
whole point is they were saying that like the mind like starts to realize that it's not in its real body and like starts to break down or something. But wouldn't you think they would want to reintroduce the fact that, oh yeah, this is the robot body, like earlier in some more constructive way? And maybe that would, I mean, maybe they tried that, I don't know.
Yeah, it's not at all clear what they're doing to him.
The deceptive part might be the problem.
Might be part of the problem for sure. Yeah, I would think so. And especially, I mean, you wouldn't think that they were ever planning on just reintroducing him as him. I guess maybe if it had worked immediately, they would have done something like that. But
and this is what I said before, is I thought before they kind of revealed that they were doing this over and over again, I thought like, oh, okay, maybe they took his brain and put it in a robot and like, this is how you live forever. You know, and that you could say that like you're transferred into it, but it's all, you know, it's all a digitized version of you. So what's real anymore? I mean, that's obviously meant to be the big question.
Maybe that Ford is fucking with the experiments, because what incentive does he have to have Papa Delos alive and well and running the park still?
And he doesn't want to sell immortality. He's more interested in creating life.
Yeah.
And for that matter, what incentive does William have for doing it? I mean,
yeah, because he's inherited the park.
Yeah, exactly. No one wants Delos to come back in like charge.
While Delos was still alive, he probably still had a lot of control. You know, like if this is what he wanted, and William was like, "Look, I'm going to run the company, and I'm not interested in trying to keep you alive," he could have maybe had him kicked out or something, right? So it could have just been an appeasement, you know, for that. But also, I mean, I think there's a curiosity for him. Is like, well, maybe if it works for him, it works for me. Obviously,
exactly. But it doesn't. I mean, but the issue is that. Unless, I mean, the only reason that would be or as far as I can figure, the only reason that would be appealing to anyone is if they wanted, like, if they thought that they were uniquely good at something and wanted to keep doing it. Like, if they were, I don't know, a human rights campaigner, and they were like, I have this goal. But
a human rights campaigner would probably like, nah, we're not meant to live forever.
Well, I mean, who knows? There's a lot of different human rights campaigners. But I'm just saying, like, you're still going to die. Like, the you that is you is dead. Like, I don't see the point of wanting an exact clone of yourself unless you think that, you know, you're doing something particularly unique.
I think that, yeah, I would agree with that from my assessment, because I think it's not really you. But I think that's the question they were at least started out to explore is like, can this be me? Can I basically transfer myself into this thing? And I don't think that works, but you know, obviously that's what they would want.
As a side
rich
note,
people just want to keep.
Best line in these two episodes is when Papa Delos says, "Oh, I defunded the research on for what's killing me 15 years ago." So I think I've got a pretty fucking good sense of humor.
That's what I was just thinking. Of, like, this asshole got, you know, some irony. Yeah.
So, Michael, can I ask you a question that I asked Adam?
Sure.
Do you think that, we see Ford's maggoty body in episode 2, I believe, or episode 1? Like, they pretty much, we're not going to get this guy. And then we're going to kill the young one too, so that there are no little mini Fords running around. Do you feel that his sentience is somehow in the Matrix somewhere? Because, things like when Clementine zombie Clementine dumped Bernard's body near a place he can get help, or the fact that Elsie is somehow alive. Is Ford still directing everything? Not just in the programming, so making Dolores do stuff because of programming he did when he was alive, but is he currently controlling stuff?
I sort of would not... I mean, again, like that sort of touches on what we were just talking about with... So I think Ford as Ford is completely dead and gone. Ford may have an AI that is making independent decisions, and
as he would following his plan.
Okay, because so sort of red brain egg Ford somewhere is still
right.
Yeah, exactly. Because that sort of goes with what I was saying, right? The only reason to want that sort of artificial version of yourself is if you had something that you wanted to be accomplished, right?
Yeah, which he does.
Which he does, exactly. And so I could easily imagine that.
So when Bernard and Elsie kind of kill everyone and the evil drainy people, and then nick a red egg, which I think we're meant to think is an actual clone consciousness rather than a just droid, artificial consciousness.
Okay, that makes sense. I was pretty drunk. Yes,
it's a human over a host.
I don't know what that. I was like, I don't know what that is. I don't care.
I think it's a human.
They're
rather
red
than
pilling
a host. Yeah.
Okay.
So who do you think he's picking up, if anyone? Do you think it's his own? Do you think it's Arnold? Do you think it's William, Logan, Papadelos? Any candidates?
I don't know. I mean, like if I was just picking almost at random, I mean, it would be Ford or Arnold. I would think. I can't imagine Papadelos.
Right.
Yeah. Like, what's he got to add? He wasn't like an AI intelligent person. He's just an idiot with a bunch of money, right?
The only question I have is if it's possibly Arnold. Is like, were they even on this track when Arnold killed himself, or there's been evidence that Arnold's kind of in the system too. So maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, Ford might be the best guess, but yeah, I really don't know.
Yeah, and can we just say that like Jeffrey Wright kills it on this show? I mean,
he does kill it on this show.
It's great,
I hadn't seen a ton of stuff with him in it. Really showcased before this. I mean, I've seen a few shows where he was in small parts or movies and he was very good, but I mean, he's just really good having to switch between multiple roles and the confusion and the twitches and just like for all the really technological, the it's CG and the special effects, like the actors are really, driving this show, I think.
But and equivalently, I think, there's a couple of people who do those sorts of performances. So Peter Mullen, obviously, acting glitchy, I think must be so hard. And then
that's Abernathy, or
no, that's the guy who plays Papadelos in the league.
Oh, okay, sure.
And having to glitch out. But I also think Dolores, so the actress who plays her, is quite interesting because, when she goes from white to Dolores, like in the fort, she's being badass, I'm going to kill the Confederados for my own dirty ends. But then when she sees her dad, she kind of switches back into the Sweetwater Dolores, like Southern twang accent. Hey, Daddy, So even her acting is like going back and forth a little bit, like within the same scene.
And you still have to remain robotic in both roles,
Yeah. So I think Evan Rachel Wood, I think it's just this outstanding cast. I think Tandy Newton has had less to do because so far we've just seen her walking around being sarcastic and dominant.
Yeah, she hasn't done much this year.
Which is delicious, but she hasn't been challenged as much yet.
Yeah, I think before the season ends, that'll definitely change.
100%. I mean, it's an outstanding cast. But I love Peter Mullen. I think he was just a standout addition. I guess we're not going to see more of him, but it's a shame.
I would. I wouldn't be surprised if we have a few more flashbacks. I mean, I thought coming into this season we wouldn't see much of young William. Jimmy. What's his name? Jimmy Simpson. But they find ways to bring him back in. So.
And again, that's really good acting, right? Because he's being aged up in the second and third.
Yeah.
Right.
Papa Delos loops, and he's kind of like adapting his acting style to be like Ed Harris's acting style. So that's also
kind of
pretty
walks
cool.
in a
Yeah.
His walks in like sort of a stiff way, and but I was gonna say, is in terms of Papadelos coming back, I don't know. I sort of also doubt that we'll see him again, just because they do flashbacks, but the flashbacks seem to be linear, right? Like,
yes,
it's a different timeline, but they don't jump back and forth within that timeline. So
actually, that's a really good point.
I sort of doubt that we'll see him again. I'd like to, because I like his accent and I like his acting and I enjoy every
like his
scene
dancing.
Yeah. Yeah, that was great.
Apparently, Lisa Joy said on the Reddit AMA today that he was the one who suggested the dancing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Really? Yeah. It's like bold call.
Is that Jack?
What's that?
Yeah,
Jock, I think your line might be pretty bad because we can't really hear you.
Most of those scenes were really good.
Yeah, and that I did read earlier that someone was saying that his scene is a bit of a callback to Lost, right?
I never watched Lost, but yeah, everyone says that.
The introduction music is very similar to the introduction music for another character in that show who was when we found him the first time was in a bunker, kind of in very similar kind of shots going day to day, doing the things, working out, yada yada yada.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that because I haven't seen Lost in a long time, but that is.
But doesn't J.J. Abrams is a
he's
an executive
producer on this too, so and he was an executive producer on Lost as well, so a little bit.
So Michael,
in there.
did you watch all of Lost? Like, cause
not all of it. I got pretty mad and left somewhere around like the fourth. I mean, somewhere around like the fourth season, I was like, oh, they have no idea what's happening. They're making things up as they go along, and there's no story here.
Yeah, that's
okay. So it's not worth going back to revisit.
I wouldn't say so.
If you watch the first 3 seasons, it's amazing television, and then the payoff sucks, and then they write articles and stuff telling you why it doesn't suck.
Yeah.
So you read the whole AMA, right, Bina?
Yes, I did.
I haven't been on Reddit today. Who was the AMA with again?
Lisa Joy, who I think this was the first. She directed.
She directed. 4, okay, yeah.
That her first episode directing.
Okay.
And
she co-created the show, so.
Yeah, I thought I recognized the name from credits or something.
Yeah, but yeah, we were reading that. And I was like the last half an hour or so before we started. I was just kind of going over that. Yeah. Interesting. And I was telling Bina, do you watch any of the behind the scenes stuff they do when it's on HBO, Michael?
I tend not to. I find behind the scenes stuff, generally speaking, to be disappointing for me. I don't know, it ruins some of the magic and doesn't really get me anything that I want usually. So I don't think I've watched any of it now.
Yeah, I think because one of the things that, I did find this episode 3 was a little disappointing because they were talking about the battle at the fort, and they were like, yeah, this was the biggest battle of the season, and I'm like, well, I didn't need to know that yet. I mean, it was 100 or more people involved. It looked like it was a pretty big deal, but I think they said it was the biggest thing they'd done so far. So, but it was just interesting. It showed how it worked, and but the one for episode 4, she was on, and just kind of discussing a little more about this episode and old Mr. Delos and all that. So it was interesting. They're quick little, they're not a ton of substance to them, but let's see.
Mordian, what do you think of William's daughter and the whole introduction of her?
I was actually going to ask you because you mentioned a minute ago that you really liked that, and I'm sort of still struggling with. I don't know, so she hasn't been in it much so far, and I have enjoyed her. I like the Westworld thing too, although I have some nitpicky problems with some of the stuff that happened at the camp. But I liked that world. I liked the whole it's just, I don't know. It was just I felt like an interesting choice for them to have made, and it was fun. And I like her. She seems engaging, but I sort of don't get it yet. I'm not sure why she's here or what she's supposed to be. So I'm a little dubious about her, I guess.
I mean, my thing is, I think that I would hate it that if her introduction is more to do with William and his character development rather than to have her own story. Like, I'm worried she gets killed in an episode or two or something, and it's really all just about him.
Yeah, I don't think that. That's not my impression. Is that won't happen. But I mean, obviously, who knows? I think she's got her own thing and her own. I imagine that she has a strong opinion about what the park is and what it should be and what it could be. I think she's there to do something, but I don't know. So far, I'm uncertain about her, I guess.
So
which is right. I mean, like, we don't know really what her motivation is or whatever. But I love the fact that she's feisty, and I as a new late entry character, I think she shows promise. Anyway.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think she shows promise.
Do you think she'll be kind of crucial to the whole, the Valley Beyond, whatever? I mean, we keep marching towards this end goal, and William says that it's a weapon and it's his biggest mistake and all that. And then, I mean, I thought, they keep revealing new things to us. So it's like we see this birthing chamber for, clone hosts. And I'm like, oh, is this it? I mean, would this be his biggest mistake? Maybe you'd think. But then what would this really have to do? I mean, what would the appeal be to any of the hosts, to Dolores or any of them? So it's probably something else. It's weird. They keep revealing stuff that kind of fits maybe, but not.
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried that ultimately the big reveal of the greatest mistake or whatever will be disappointing in some way, like, or at least like.
Yeah, we probably have these kind of pie in the sky type ideas of something beyond our understanding, and it's going to be something really simple.
Yeah, I sort of like, I don't know, I just can't imagine what it could be that would really be that devastating. Like, even if it's like this giant warehouse with clones of every rich and powerful person on Earth or things like that, it's still like a situation where it's like, well, it's not like you can't tell the difference between a host and a guest, right? I mean, like, just like there are like, not from a simple visual inspection or whatever, but like there are plenty of ways to scan people and check it out, right? So it's not like if you release this horde of clones, they could take over the world and no one would ever know, like, so.
Well, yeah, they'd have to find the people in the real world and replace them quietly. And I mean, I guess that does come back to, we see like all of the hosts, or at least hundreds of hosts, just in that lake. I don't think that's all the hosts, but
then if it's not about cloning real world people and somehow either blackmailing, why are they illicitly connecting their DNA?
Right, exactly, and so that's what I'm saying. It seems like it would have to be.
It could be about cloning and replacing, but it seems like maybe that's not. They're not there with the technology yet. I mean, that maybe that's why.
Well, we don't know that.
Well, maybe they do it on the sneak, and then once it works, they could maybe start offering people immortality. Maybe a brain transfer or something, or maybe just straight up blackmail until then. I don't know. It is interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, it also, it just can't be a thing where like Dolores and the Men in Black are racing to the big mainframe that holds everybody's violent pornography, right? I mean, like, that can't be like the big.
Well, reveal, I mean, like the obvious thing is, like, let's say you get the Secretary of Defense comes to Westworld and you're able to get a clone of his brain, then you could interrogate that clone to try to get something that you could sell to a rival country or something, right? Get codes.
Sure, but I'm just saying,
whatever.
Like,
but yeah, how would that be a benefit to Dolores? I don't.
Well, I assume really she wants to release a lot of information, or she wants to release something to like open the Pandora's box, right? That's at least the way I've sort of framed it in my head, is Dolores wants to open the Pandora's box that was William's greatest mistake, or, but what exactly that is, I'm not sure. But that's sort of my impression, is that the Man in Black wants to destroy his greatest mistake, and Dolores wants to sort of release it on the world. Is that sort of the way you guys think about it, or no?
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't seem like an asset for him. he seems to get he wants to get there either to prevent someone else from using it or to destroy it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that it's a weapon, I mean, again, I don't think it's going to be like a nuclear bomb or something, crazy like that. It's going to be something more existential.
Yeah. Have to be something that threatens humanity, because otherwise, like, it just is going to make Dolores look like an idiot, right? Because this whole time she's been like, no, we can fight them. You don't know what I know, right? Like, and if it turns out that it's just like, oh, he's got 15 clones that are easily detectable, like, oh, that's not really going to do anything, Dolores. But thank you for trying, like. So it does have to be something devastating, but I just sort of, I don't know, a failure of imagination on my part. I can't think of what it could be.
Anything else that we haven't talked about, Michael, that you wanted to chat about? Questions, theories, tinfoil?
I'm trying to think if I had anything. I don't think I had anything particular that I want. I just sort of wanted to talk about Westworld for a few minutes.
The most important question, obviously, is does Lee, the narrative designer, survive in Shogun World, or is he dead? I mean, these are the things that are important.
Yeah, that's the question on everyone's lips.
Why is he still alive?
Can we have more of Lee? That's what we all want. They gave him a little bit of backstory in episode 3, right? Like, I guess you might give someone a little bit of backstory right before you kill them, just to make people feel a little bit sad.
He was so shitty in the first season. Like, you're just like, you have no connection to him or any care if he dies. So maybe they bring him around a little bit. He's got a little humanity going on. We only know what 3 of the 6 parks are. So, I mean, do we think that's something that they would save for the next season? I mean, are we still going to be on this island in next season? It does seem like everything takes place over about 2 weeks. So at the finale, are we going to catch up to the 2 weeks? Which, I mean, is fine. I think the first season was only a couple weeks too, except for all the jumping back and forth through time, obviously.
I think it depends where we end season 2. Maybe they'll do then a 5-year gap or something. Not literally 5-year, but fast forward to ramifications and consequences. It feels like season 2 is all going to be about going back and deepening our understanding of how we get here. So we don't really move forward much in time. We're just moving forward incrementally, but really understanding the backstory. I think that would become tired and old if they didn't then at some point show some real consequences and move forward.
Yeah,
I think there's zero chance they try to reopen the park in the future, right? I mean,
I don't know, Jurassic Park?
I was supposed to say they did it with the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's probably a hard question for the producers, just because I think that you're right, Bina, that they sort of have to move beyond the park. And they've done it a little bit so far this year. I mean, we've had scenes outside of the park at least. But I feel like once you start moving outside the park, you sort of lose the core thing, the core there's these cool theme parks. And so I don't know, I don't know. I kind of feel like that they'd be loath to, sort of completely move the story off the island for season 3.
I agree. I think they're a bit worried, and that's part of why they structured the season this way, where we show up in the first episode and we find out it's been a couple weeks and things are kind of settled. But wait, we're going to go back and show you these other parks and everything that's going on, because I know that's kind of the perverse thrill that a lot of people get watching the show. It's like, ooh, what crazy thing are people allowed to do in this park? But that's all got to go away pretty quickly. If the narrative progresses.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I've been incredibly impressed by Westworld throughout the first season and almost a half, I guess, because really right from the beginning of when I started watching it, I was like, this is good. I really like this. When is it going to completely fall apart? And the fact that it hasn't completely fallen apart yet has been very gratifying to me. But I still sort of am imagining that at any time, it will stop working out so well for me. just they'll have to, I don't know, they'll lose. Because it's sort of like, it's kind of the same reason that Lost fell apart ultimately, right? Is that you kind of keep having to introduce new mysteries, but then you also have to pay them off. But it's just like this, pace where you just like, you can never stop doing either one. You can never stop introducing.
This has the benefit of not having to do like 25 episodes a year.
Oh, sure.
For network. So thankfully,
no question.
That's I've always thought that in long form, narrative like we have now with television shows works a lot better when you don't have to. The reason why we do so many of these procedurals and stuff is because it's easy. Like a doctor show or a crime show or whatever. You just do the same thing over and over again, and you change some details, and people can come in and out when they want. But when you try to do that longer narrative, which a lot of shows do nowadays, but then you still want to, give these huge season orders, like ideas, especially over a certain amount of time, like there are only so many ideas there in your writer's room. So keeping it more compact will help. But, in the end, the show can't go on for 10 seasons or something stupid. So there's got to be an end point. But we know there will be a third season of some length. That they haven't said how many episodes the order will be.
Well, I have nothing else really to say.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I was going to say that I'm really enjoying this. Like I said, I think this was the best episode so far, and I'm really excited for episode 5. So we'll probably get back together after the next couple episodes and see where we're at.
I'd love to.
Yeah,
it's like I find it amazing. Like season 2, so many shows dropped the ball, and this is still a show that we were on holiday last week and we had to like somehow find a channel in where we were that had HBO that we could find when it was on and watch it. And it consistently surprises me. It consistently steps up questions and then answers others. And that's really impressive. So I'm
completely on board with that. The fact that they managed to they've set like a pretty high bar for themselves in season 1, and they continually are like at least meeting and sometimes exceeding where they were before. I
hope the majority of people are still thinking that, because I know I work with some doctors I work with that watch the show, and then they have varying opinions. I think one of them was like, oh, after that first episode, I was like, I'll give it one more episode, or I'm just going to quit. There's not enough going on, or I think a lot of them like it when there's the nudity and the violence and things, and they're just like, this is they're like, I really just couldn't tell what was going on. So I'm like, man, you got like 15 years of advanced schooling.
Yeah.
If you're not paying attention, this is one of the few shows that I actually sit down and just watch. I don't watch anything else or do anything else.
Yeah.
And even then, you might miss some stuff, but I have a pretty good idea of what's going on, and there are things that we're supposed to be confused about, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on there. But that's how it's supposed to be. It's not like it's too complicated. I think like with Game of Thrones, at times people are like, who's that character? I know I've seen him, but I have no idea who he is or what his name is or where he comes from. There's a lot of that goes around at the office, but I think less so with this. It's just, they're trying to spin a web, and it's just maybe not everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah, generally speaking, the only problems I ever have with Westworld are admittedly pretty nitpicky stuff where I'm like, well, I don't think that makes sense within the context, stuff like that. But aside from that kind of nitpicky thing that's going to happen in any sort of reasonably complicated show, I don't think that it's particularly hard to follow, and I think the number of characters is reasonable, and they're usually kept in their own groups, and so within those groups it's easy to remember who people are,
like families in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, or locations. Winterfell, the Winterfell plot versus the Dornish plot.
Sure.
Cool. I look forward to chatting to you all soon. It's late now. I was up. I'm jet lagged. I just took too many flights this week, and I'm just haven't slept in my own bed for like 10 days, and I'm now in my own bed, so I'm gonna sleep the sleeping angels tonight. Oh my god! I had this really bizarrely vivid dream of being in a plane hijacking by ISIS.
So you're not going to go on any planes anytime soon.
I have to think. That would be plane hijackings are harder now. I would significantly harder, I would imagine. So
it was a proper ISIS hijacking, and for some reason, I was sitting just outside the door to in the front row, so I knew what was going on. and I was talking to one of the. It was so involved, and then it turned into like in Flight Plan, all those like classic hijacking things where somehow there was a hatch in the floor and I managed to get down into it. So I was crawling under the plane and then popping up somewhere else and trying to call like flight control. It was so involved.
The hatch. See, it does come back to Lost. Oh, sorry. Anyway.
All right, I'll leave you to. Pleasure speaking to you again, Michael.
Absolutely. I'm glad to see both of you.
Bye, guys.
Bye. See you.
All right. Bye.